Crossovers are really something, aren't they? Characters from other franchises, other worlds meet each other to join forces or duke it out like we've always dreamed of seeing play out. It's a fact that we are spoiled with crossovers in the 21st century. You can't go 10 minutes without catching at least one in some fashion. In the 20th century, though, they weren't as common. But we got a few goodies like Frankenstein meets the Wolfman, X-Men vs. Street Fighter, Power Rangers in Space with Ninja Turtles Next Mutation, the worst version of the Ninja Turtles ever. Compared to the modern era, crossovers back then were more like rare events, and the biggest, most aspiring crossover of that time is King Kong vs. Godzilla. Before the long-awaited rematch comes in Godzilla vs. Kong, whenever the hell that is. Let's look into the 1962 classic and see what made it so legendary aside from the concept alone. By the way, I'm focusing on the original Japanese version. The American version is a decent 60s B movie, but the scenes were rearranged, some were removed entirely, and Akira Ifukube's score was replaced by Universal stock music. It does have new footage for exposition, but the Japanese version is the definitive way of watching this. And in 2019, it finally became available in the US in this illustrious Showa-era collection. It cost a pretty penny, but it's worth it for any Godzilla fan. Now let's dive in and see why King Kong vs. Godzilla is that good of a kaiju crossover. At first, the movie was going to be King Kong vs. Frankenstein, but the project went through an alteration, putting Godzilla in place of Frankenstein. A change that worked out for the better since King Kong has more in common with Godzilla than Frankenstein. Both had movies that were milestones in special effects, both rampaged through a city, both died in their debut movies, both wrecked trains, both had sequels released less than a year after their debut movies, with their successors filling in the seats and omitted the lead romantic couples of the previous movies. Both had memorable closing lines in their original movies.
Well, Denham, the airplane's got him.
Oh, no. It wasn't the airplanes. It was beauty killed the beast.
もし水爆実験が続けて行われるとしたら、あのゴジラの同類がまた世界のどこかへ現れてくるかもしれない。
Kong was also a partial influence for Godzilla. While developing the first movie, Toho wanted Godzilla to be stop motion like Kong, but the special effects team was too inexperienced for that, so they went with suit motion. And this movie is a first for both monsters in a few elements. The first time they're in color, the first time they're in widescreen, their first crossover, their first movie with verses in the title, and their first movie with a heavy comedic approach. The cheeky satirical beginning of the movie tells you what the tone is going for. No somber opening on a ship or atom bomb explosion. It's not dramatic or tense like the four former movies. It has a light-hearted, tongue-in-cheek mood that the majority of the Godzilla Showa series is recognized for. Some would say it's too much of a drastic shift, but it's been 7 years since the last Godzilla flick and 29 years since Kong was on the big screen. This is a movie for a new era, the swingin' 60s, so you know what? Embrace it! Pacific Pharmaceuticals is a good way to exemplify that at the start. A commercial studio led by the hyper-stressed-out advertising director, Taco, the funniest Godzilla character. He's obsessed with getting ratings and often goes overboard with his crew. He's so animated among the cast. He's like the skinny Japanese counterpart of Burnt Thompson from 87 Ninja Turtles.
At last, there'll be some peace in this city.
Peace? Who wants peace? Our viewers thrive on disasters.
Taco assigns 2 of his employees, Osamu and Kinzaburo, to go to Faro Island and bring the fabled god of that region to the mainland to gain ratings. Sure, sounds easy. Elsewhere, an American nuclear sub, Seahawk, is investigating a temperature rise in the Bering Sea. As they approach the source, a Geiger counter picks up radiation. Before Osamu heads for Faro Island, we get the scene with him having dinner with his sister Fumiko and her boyfriend Kazuo, a fun guy showing off his strong wire invention to Osamu's mild irritation. Not only is Osamu going somewhere, so is Kazuo, as he's off to Hokkaido. It's a calm moment where we get to know the lead characters more before the action ramps up. They're likable and the chemistry shared between them is easy to see, joking with each other and a few moments of light bickering. And so the departure begins, with Osamu and Kinzaburo heading for Faro Island and Kazuo to Hokkaido. Meanwhile, as Seahawk advances to the source of the radiation, the submarine malfunctions, leaving the team trapped. As if things couldn't get worse, they hear it. Meanwhile, Team Osamu makes for Faro Island, and the natives there are actors in blackface. Yeah. I guess they wanted to be faithful to the original Kong movie, but they shouldn't have done this. And it could have easily been avoided. It's an original island made up for the movie. Establish that everyone just coincidentally looks Japanese. Same goes for these movies. After receiving gifts from Team Osamu, the chief allows the two to stay for a while as the whole tribe quickly transitions to praying for Kong as he roars, following the thunderclaps. A small detail I like about this movie is that before we see either Kong or Godzilla, we hear their roars. That's some buildup. Meanwhile, a rescue helicopter sent for Seahawk observes the pool of radiation and a crumbling iceberg.
What's that, huh? It's Godzilla!
Yeah, Godzilla! Not only is this a crossover for the titular monsters, it's a distant sequel to Godzilla Raids Again. At the end of that movie, the second Godzilla is buried under an avalanche triggered by the military, one of the most creative ways of dealing with him. After a 7-year slumber, he's ready to do his thing. I love Godzilla's suit in this movie, King Goji. The first suit, Shodai Goji, is iconic, but way too cumbersome for the actress to use. The second suit, Yakushu Goji, was lighter and easier to function, but the design suffered for it. I mean, look at his face, it's like a deflated muffin. This suit though, it looks heavy enough without compromising movement like Shodai Goji did. The yellow eyes are a nice touch, and I don't mind that he doesn't have ears. That's the ideal retro Godzilla design. This movie's the first to give him his staple blue atomic breath, and his roar's been updated. The first sounded a lot deeper and rougher. The new one sounds higher pitched, but still intimidating. And yes, his theme. This movie introduced to us the long-lasting Godzilla theme composed by Akira Ifukube that's been used in a lot of movies. Godzilla wastes no time and obliterates tanks on the shore. You know what the real tragedy is? Taco's ratings are plummeting. Yeah, Godzilla could destroy Japan, but who cares about that? We need more views, dang nabbit! Meanwhile, a giant octopus invades the village on Faroe Island. This is likely a nod to King Kong attacking the villagers in the original after he busts through the gates, but this time we have a different giant monster doing it to frame Kong as more innocent. And speaking of Kong... the king has returned, and he's been through a bit of a change. Instead of stop motion, he's a man in a suit in the same vein as Godzilla, making his movements a hell of a lot easier to capture. His overall design is good. His face does have this derpy expression, especially when he's eating or drinking. He's also got a new roar. Similar to Godzilla, it's less threatening than the old one. Not as deep, but it's the kind of roar you would think Bigfoot would have. And most notably, he's been beefed up. In the original movie, he's around 20 feet tall. Yeah, I doubt he could have lasted 5 seconds against Godzilla. This time, he's about as tall. He's big enough to be seen past the gate. While this is a sequel on Godzilla's part, it's a reboot for Kong, making this one of the earliest. Kong breaks through the gate and fights the octopus. Kong has fought a number of giant animals back in 33, and he's always the victor. In contrast to Godzilla's entrance, Kong is depicted as less villainous, kicking the octopus out, saving the villagers. Purely to defend his territory, I assume. Kong Skull Island paid homage to the octopus fight, as well as Old Boy when he's eating the octopus. After saving the natives, he drinks himself drowsy on berry juice. The natives chant a song to put Kong in a deep sleep. Aside from Godzilla's theme, this is the most popular song in the score. Team Osamu is on their way to bring the sleeping Kong to Japan. Fantastic news for Taco as ratings are climbing. We also get the scene with the employees discussing who would win in a fight, Godzilla or Kong. A micro bit of fourth wall breaking, but it feels natural and it fits the tone of this movie. Taco greets Team Osamu on the cargo ship and he's quite happy to see Kong. He's basically his #1 fanboy. He's informed that he is responsible for any property damage done by Kong. Nobody wants to go through what Carl Denham had to after the events of the original movie.
I'll give you half of everything I made out of King Kong.
How much will that come to?
Well, let's see. 11 lawsuits and the privilege of being indicted by the grand jury, too.
Another bit of detail that I really like is we have Japanese characters encountering the American monster, and American characters encountering the Japanese monster. A clever yin-yang thing we have going. Back in Japan, Fumiko's friend Tamae informs her that Kazuo's ship was destroyed, likely by Godzilla, and there's a small chance he survived, urging her to go to Hokkaido. To Tamae's surprise, Kazuo is alive and back home. She tells him about Fumiko and he rushes to the train she took to Hokkaido. A misunderstanding, but they'll meet up, maybe laugh about it, get back home, and oh crap! While Team Osamu encounters Kong, Team Kazuo deals with Godzilla. Like what Red Letter Media said about The Empire Strikes Back, there is this bowl structure with the lead characters. They start together, go their separate ways, and meet up at the end. The 1933 Kong movie, the first one, isn't the only one getting callbacks. This movie pays tribute to the first Godzilla movie with two certain moments. Godzilla smashing a train, and Fumiko reacting to Godzilla exactly like how Emiko did. We are moving forward with this series while including some acknowledgements to the old days without going overboard. They never felt like a detour, the plot's always in motion. With Kong waking up, the captain gives the order to cut him loose, which Tako is not cool with. Kong rises from the water following the rash explosion. At least Tako's happy. Yay! So Kong is on the mainland and yes! They're gonna fight! And they have an audience. Tako is obviously gonna root for Kong. It is a short fight, but think of it as an appetizer where they establish their combat prowess and intellect. Godzilla effortlessly destroys a helicopter with his atomic breath, leaving Kong aghast. And Godzilla is on the higher ground, conveying their difference in power.
It's symbolic or something.
With a few blasts from Godzilla, Kong walks away. Kong is an intelligent creature. He knows he can't beat Godzilla for now.
Godzilla has a brain about this size. He is sheer brute force, while Kong is a thinking animal. His brain is considerably larger.
This is the first time Kong lost a fight against another giant animal. He was unbeatable back home, but Godzilla is in another league. He's beaten Anguirus, who's way bigger than the octopus. I like how Godzilla is showboaty enough to brag about his victory. This isn't the dramatic Godzilla from 1954, it's the younger, more immature Godzilla from 1955. Why wouldn't he gloat? This sets Kong as the underdog and Godzilla as the main threat. And so the military strategizes with getting rid of Godzilla. They plan to use a 1,000,000-volt trap and it kinda works. Godzilla walks around it. I think we found Godzilla's weakness. Meanwhile, Kong runs through the city all at 1933, trashing a monorail train included. He picks Fumiko out of it, and she just had to wear yellow. Now Kong is storming through with a woman in his hand. Well, it wouldn't be Kong if he didn't do the latter at least. And like in 33, he climbs an architectural landmark, the National Diet Building. Smaller than the Empire State Building, but still. Osamu cooperates with the military to tranquilize Kong with the same tactic he learned on Faroe Island. With Kong asleep, everyone agrees to set Kong against Godzilla. You know the words.
Let them fight.
With Kazuo's wires connecting Kong to massive balloons, he's flying towards Godzilla. The next morning, with Osamu and Kazuo observing via helicopter, Kong is dropped on Godzilla at the foot of Mount Fuji. It's time for round 2! Whee!
Oh, come on!
This fight. This is what it's all been building up to. A 9-minute fight between the most famous monsters in American and Japanese cinema. Knowing Godzilla's advantage, Kong uses his brains by hiding from him under a cliff and catching him from behind. It's effective enough to make Godzilla scurry away for a second. Now, this is my own headcanon. After Godzilla fires his atomic breath, Kong realizes something. The atomic breath is a good long-range attack, but maybe not a short-ranged one. Kong tackles Godzilla, prompting him to push him away far enough to fire his atomic breath again. Kong's got it figured out. He's up close and goes berserk on him. Gotta bring up the stop-motion jump kick. It's like a predecessor to the flying kick in Godzilla vs. Megalon. After Kong slips up, Godzilla beats him when he's down. This part can drag, but it shows you how dire it looks for Kong. Fortunately for Kong, a lightning storm juices him up. Electricity energizes Kong. He eats electrical wires like Twizzlers. He tastes Godzilla and throws him aside. So long, Godzilla! The two are at each other's throats and not holding back. And Kong has his funniest moment in a fight scene. After being pushed down, he yanks a tree out of the ground and tries to shove it down Godzilla's throat. The arms, Godzilla flailing his arms. And Godzilla spits it back at Kong with his atomic breath. Priceless. This part needs to be in Godzilla vs. Kong. I would love to see this done in CG. The fight rages on, with Kong using judo to throw Godzilla over his shoulder. Godzilla uses his tail to trip Kong. They battle their way through a small town, and it culminates with the two destroying a pagoda. When it's nothing but rubble, they fall into the ocean together, ending the fight. This is the first Godzilla movie that ends with a monster fight. Godzilla's final battle with Anguirus and Godzilla Raids Again was in the middle of that movie. But here, the fight between Kong and Godzilla was built up and utilized at the end to cap it all off in a satisfying finale, and the majority of monster movies afterwards follow this. Kong rises from the water and swims back to Pharaoh Island. The movie ends with Godzilla's roar, followed by Kong's. According to Toho, Kong is the official winner. That's right, Kong wins! For the first time, a movie ends with Kong alive and victorious. Gotta respect Toho for letting their star kaiju lose the bout. In addition, it helps ground Godzilla more. He was this indomitable juggernaut who could only be stopped by a heavy sacrifice, but this time, he's been defeated without an oxygen destroyer or dead pilots. It was by another monster, a game changer for this series. This outcome is refreshing for both kaiju. 59 years later, King Kong vs. Godzilla is still a top-tier crossover. It brought then-retired monsters back in a new art style. The movie's funny and pits the titular characters in comedic segments, but it doesn't abandon their integrity as respected kaiju. It found a solid middle ground. Kong may have more screen time, but both he and Godzilla were treated equally with scenes dedicated to each of them. Toho undoubtedly had plenty of love for the two monsters, with nods to their debut films and opportunities for them to win a younger audience. Honor the old and pave the way for the new. The human characters are excellent too. There's a lot of charm put into them. We haven't gotten a lineup of human characters as lively as these in my opinion, even though a few actors return for later installments. The score is one of Akira Ifukube's finest, with key tracks that will last for years to come. The pacing of the story never flatlines. It doesn't take long for Kong and Godzilla to appear, and the human scenes don't come across as boring. There isn't a dull moment. I'm gonna say it, this is the best crossover movie of the 20th century, and maybe one of the most important crossovers ever made. It lives up to expectations and packs extra. This is a must-watch for any fan of Godzilla, Kong, kaiju flicks, and crossovers in general. Don't miss the fight of a lifetime. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, hit that bell icon, and feel free to comment what you think about King Kong vs. Godzilla. Till next time.